Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, your step-by-step chef. And I just want to tell you, if there's one thing I absolutely love, it's going to Louisiana. To go from New Orleans out into Cajun country, to Lafayette, to Eunice, to Lake Charles, to Breaux Bridge. And every place in between is absolutely a treat for me. I love the food, I love the music, the dancing, the culture. It's just an amazing place. Did I mention that I love the food? I absolutely do. Unfortunately, we can't get that great Louisiana food everywhere in the country. It's just not possible. So sometimes, when we can't get to Louisiana, we have to make our own. And in this episode, we're going to make an easy shrimp etouffee recipe. Now, one of the reasons it's shrimp and not crawfish is that you can't get crawfish year-round everywhere, and you certainly can't where I am. But nothing beats fresh crawfish, and if I had the option, that's what I'd be using to make this recipe. I can't do it, so I have shrimp, and it comes out fantastic. And it actually, etouffee is a little bit of an intimidating name to me because I do respect all of the chefs and cooks in Louisiana who make this dish. But I do want to tell you one thing about it. Just like any regional cuisine, there's a lot of different ways to make it, and it's delicious. In fact, the funny thing about going to Louisiana is not only is the food epic, but the arguments about the food are epic. I've actually sat in a Louisiana dance hall, dancing occasionally, doing Cajun and Zydeco, which I absolutely love, and heard people arguing about red beans and rice for 45 minutes. 45 minutes. And honestly, I couldn't pick which side because I like it in a wide range. I love all of this Louisiana cooking in a wide range. I love to see what different people in different parts of the state do to the core cuisine. It's absolutely a blast. So if you can't get to Louisiana anytime soon, I hope you will try this etouffee recipe. So come on, let's cook. And here are the ingredients for our shrimp etouffee. First of all, we have 3/4 of a stick of butter. We're going to use 4 celery stalks, 3 medium onions. I'm using sweet onions. You can also use yellow or white onions. 1 sweet red pepper. Now, to some people, that's blasphemy. You have to use bell pepper, green pepper, in etouffee. It's part of the Cajun trinity of celery, the onions, and the pepper. I like this dish either way, but I really like it. I was in the mood to try it with the sweet pepper again, and it just has a little bit of a milder taste to it. But again, totally up to you. I respect people who want to use the bell or green pepper. That's just fine. We also are going to use 4 cloves of garlic, 4 tablespoons of flour, 1.5 pounds of this shrimp. Now, if you can get fresh shrimp like you get in Louisiana at your local seafood shop, get that. Man, nothing beats fresh shrimp. I've actually eaten fresh shrimp in a campground in Louisiana, believe it or not, on Thanksgiving. And it was one of the best meals I've ever had. Boiled it right at the site, dipped it in a little bit of butter. Oh boy, was that delicious. But I have frozen shrimp. I'm going to defrost that in a pool of slightly warm water before we start using that. But you do want to get your 1.5 pounds of shrimp. We're going to use 1.5 cups of chicken broth, although you can also just use water. And not all chicken broths are created equally. If you make your own, that's all the better. If you buy commercial, kind of sample them. Some of them are very tasty, and honestly, some of them I really don't like that much. We're also going to use 1/4 cup of chopped tomato, and I'm using 4 Campari tomatoes, but any tomato that you get your hands on, as long as you can come up with that 1/4 cup, that should be perfect. We're going to use 1 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne. The other thing we're going to do while we're doing all of this is prepare some rice. And you want to have kind of a, probably about 6 cups of rice prepared to serve this etouffee on. And what I recommend when you make the rice to make it really hold up to the etouffee is make sure it doesn't come out soggy. And the way you do that is, let's say you're making rice that requires 2 cups of water, add a 1/2 to 1/4 cup less water than what's called for. And in that case, you will end up with a drier rice. I can't tell you enough to try that, because a lot of the commercial rices that come in these packages, they come out soggy when you make it with the amount of liquid that they recommend. So again, cut back just a little bit on the water and it should come up just firm enough to stand up to the etouffee. So let me show you how to put all this together. Okay, so to recap, after that epic introduction, I have my shrimp defrosting and I have the rice on the stove, so they'll both be ready. So now we're just going to prepare our veggies. And the first thing we're going to do is just chop up our celery. And I like to leave the celery so that it has some presence in the etouffee. And that means that, I don't cut it super small. I don't completely mince it. Just getting rid of these tough parts. But what I like to do is slice the celery up the middle. Get this out of the way. And then just give it a chop. These come out to about diced size. They're pretty thin. It's under 1/8 of an inch thin pieces. And I'm going to do this for all of the celery. I'm working around a tripod, so it's a little bit hard to show you this, but here you go. And we're going to do that for all the pieces of celery. And I'll be right back. And through the magic of television, here's our celery all chopped up. Just put it all in this bowl, and then we'll chop up our onions. And again, we have 3 sweet onions for this, but you can use yellow or white onion if you like. And I'll chop it about the same size as the celery. That uniformity, I think, makes a difference in the texture of the dish. And there's a little tough spot in this onion. There we go. And we'll do this for all 3 onions. And what I like to do is just cut this way, cut these lines. And these lines are about 1/8 of an inch apart, if you can't see. 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going that way across, and then I'm going perpendicular. So I'm making squares, and then all I do is I cut down the face of the onion, and we have nice chopped onion. And again, I'm just cutting down the face of it, and the onion's chopping up nicely. And I'll repeat this for all 3 onions until the onions are all used up. So I'll be right back. Okay, so our onion is all chopped up. Quite miraculous how it does that. All going into our Cajun Trinity bowl, again, which is the onion, the celery, and the bell pepper. Except in our case, we're using sweet red pepper. Now, using this pepper, which is really, it's just a ripe bell pepper that turns a little bit sweeter. Using this is probably what's going to get me pulled aside at the Breaux Bridge Crawfish Festival, and someone's going to go, "What did you think you were doing?" And I'll apologize profusely. But this is just something that I like. But I've had etouffee so many different ways. And that's the fun of the dish. And actually the fun of this will be having arguments over sweet red pepper with people in Louisiana because they're just so fun-loving and the arguments are just the best. And I learned actually so much about cooking from overhearing people in Louisiana arguing over the best jambalaya, the best red beans and rice, the best etouffee, and the best gumbo. And gumbo is really funny, and I will make a gumbo at some point. I mean, I really want to set off a war because gumbos, there is no just one gumbo. There's just not one version of it. I've had gumbos that were as thick as Mississippi River mud, and I've had some that were almost like a thin broth. And the one thing they had in common is they tasted great. I mean, you put Louisiana seafood into any of these dishes, and you won me over. And but the cool thing is gumbo is really funny because people, I mean, they take it personally. I mean, you got to be careful if you're gonna enter into these conversations. In fact, don't enter into them unless you know what you're doing. Just listen and ask people. How do you like gumbo? How do you like your etouffee? How do you like your red beans and rice in your jambalaya? I mean, it's just hilarious. But the points that people give you are just amazing. And the things that people will tell you absolutely should not do, I mean, are very instructional. And then you find out the next place you go that people broke that rule. It's just a great place to go and learn. And just learn about cooking. And learn about dancing. And learn about music. And learn about art. Just so much fun. So there's my blasphemous sweet red pepper. Now here's our tomato. And this is interesting about tomato because a lot of etouffee recipes will tell you to use, like a tablespoon of tomato paste. And I'm sure that's just fine with some people. I've actually heard people say, do not add tomato paste to your etouffee. I've heard that in Louisiana. And I've heard other people say, oh, you gotta add it. I'm eating them halfway. I'm adding fresh tomato. And it does add a zing to the dish, very slight. It's in the background. We're not adding enough so that this turns into a marinara. We're just not adding that much to it. But it's enough to add a nice little background note. And I don't really like, and I'm going to end up in a fight somewhere, probably in Lafayette. Someone's going to go, why didn't you add the tomato paste? And it just doesn't appeal to me. It's kind of flattens the dish a little bit, but to other people, it's heaven. And matters of taste, I do not argue. Everyone has a different taste. So what I'm going to do with these is just rinse out the seeds and pulp and put them in this bowl. I'm going to set them aside. And actually, I did kind of forget a step. I do like to dice these a little bit because I don't want whole tomato in this dish. So just give them a quick dice, just like this. You don't have to go too much smaller because they will dissolve into the sauce. The sauce has some heat to it. It's just a quick dice. These tomatoes are very sweet. And that's why I love my Camparis. But whatever tomato you can get your hands on in your area, that's all you need. And we're just shooting for 1/4 to 1/2 cup of tomato. A little bit more if you like it to taste. I mean, I'm ending up with a little bit more, and I guarantee you I'm going to use it all. Okay, so there's our tomato. And then we'll take our head of garlic, and we'll just take the cloves off. Now, I have a crusher for the garlic. If you don't have a garlic crusher, just finely mince it. Again, it's another ingredient that will kind of vanish into the sauce, become a background note. I like it. I don't want to have garlic etouffee though, so I don't go overboard. And I know I said 4 cloves, but one of these cloves was really small. And here we go. I'm just going to crush it into here. And sometimes I'll crush it right into the dish, but the only thing dangerous about doing that, if you put it right into the pan, is that sometimes the paper wrapping will fall into the dish too, and fishing that out of etouffee isn't that fun. Oops. I think my crusher's on vacation. Okay, so that should be plenty of garlic for this etouffee. And in a second, I'll be right back and I'll show you how to prepare the shrimp. Okay, so here's how we prepare our shrimp. These have defrosted. They're still chilly. I didn't leave them on the counter for 4 hours. It took about 15 minutes in a warm bath, 15-20 minutes to get these to defrost all the way through. And I'm just cutting them into thirds. So I took the tail off. I'll show you that again. Here's the tail. And these are tail line. You just want to peel whatever kind of shrimp you get. Get rid of that tail. And just cut it into third segments. Now, if you have access to crawfish, you can certainly use those. If you have fresh crawfish, I mean, clean them, get them to about that size, and you'll be ready to roll. And some places you can get pre-picked frozen crawfish, and I've actually used those before. I've defrosted it. They come in kind of a block. I've defrosted them and added them in to the etouffee, just like I'm going to do with the shrimp. So anyways, I'm going to clean this all the way down at this whole bowl, just like this, and then we're ready to roll. And as you can see, the shrimp is all cut into thirds. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator because we have to cook down those vegetables to make our etouffee sauce. So I'll see you over at the stove. And I have this skillet. It's preheated over medium heat. And the first thing we're going to do is melt our 2/3 of a stick of butter. I'm going to work that in. A little shot, a little tacky, a little warm in the kitchen as usual. Get that all mixed in. And let's add our celery, onion, and sweet red pepper. I know it's supposed to be green bell pepper. And what we're going to do is saute these until they're soft. So we don't want them crunchy in this dish. This is not a salad. I mean, maybe the butter was the first hint, but we want to cook these down. And I'm just telling you, the aroma from the celery, the peppers, and the onion, the aroma from this is just heavenly. So keep it over medium heat. Stir it occasionally. And actually what we'll do too is we're going to add in some of the other ingredients that we prepared. Let's put our tomatoes in, because I do want those to cook down. Again, they're not supposed to be distinct. They're not supposed to stand out in this dish. You're not supposed to go, I had etouffee and tomatoes. It's just not what we want. So they're going to cook down too. And they're a lot softer than the other ingredients, so they'll cook down much more. They'll vanish into the sauce and give a nice background note. Here's our garlic. And any of these ingredients that I'm adding, after you try it my way, if you want to change up some of these, add a little bit more of this and that, and you think of something that I'm not adding, certainly add it. Some people will add complicated spices to this, you know. I mean, they'll add, you might have some thyme in it, some rosemary, some parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. You just don't know what people are going to do, but do it to your taste. So try it this way. This is a very basic and accessible etouffee recipe, but you might want to add something else into it that I'm not even thinking about. So we're just going to keep stirring this, get these sauteed down until they're soft. And this could take about 15 minutes, so I'll be back. Okay, so here we are, 15 minutes later. Might take you a little bit longer depending on the vegetables, but they don't have any more fight in them. When I stir it, I'm not feeling a lot of crunchy resistance. We don't want this to be just a sauteed crunchy dish. You want these vegetables cooked down. And now we're adding our 4 tablespoons of flour. And do it one at a time, stir them in. That will help to prevent the dreaded clumping. We don't want donuts in the middle of our etouffee. You can even sift it in if you're worried about it, but I don't really worry about it with this dish because it's pretty rugged, and we're still going to add some chicken broth, which will dissolve all this down. Okay. And we have one more coming. And this gives the sauce its body. I'm working off the end of a pack of flour, and I'm just going to do this. Don't tell the people at the fancy cooking schools that I just did that. I'm just a humble home cook, just like you. And this helps to make it nice and pasty. And we're going to do this for 5 minutes. We're going to saute this. I just want to add my salt at this point. And I don't over salt the dishes that I make because I like people to be able to salt it to their taste at the table. Too many restaurants that I go to will over salt the dish, and I mean, I just got to tell you, some of them get so aggressive with it that the food is not really edible. You can't taste the ingredients because there's too much salt. And also, salt is very quickly absorbed into whatever you're making. So often what happens is there's more sodium than you ever guessed in there because it got absorbed. And then there's the salt you can taste. So we're just going to saute this now with the flour in it for 5 minutes, which is going to reduce the vegetables even more. So I'll be right back. And 5 minutes later, let's add our chili powder. Our black pepper. Our cayenne, and go light on this if you don't like it too spicy. The first time you make it, go a little bit light on it. I like mine pretty spicy. And then you can adjust the ingredients to your taste the next time you make it. And let's get this all stirred in. I love this dish. And again, there's so many different ways to have it. I've had it with thick cream sauces, quite delicious. And I've had them almost like a clear sauce where you don't see the vegetables at all, and everything in between. I like it with a little bit of veggie presence like I'm making it, If you don't like the veggie presence, you can cook the vegetables down even further. But I like to have a little bit of texture to my etouffee. And now we're adding our chicken broth. And again, if you have water, that's fine too. If you do it with water, you might have to add a little bit more salt up front to get the right taste. But I really like it with this chicken broth. Get this all mixed in. And we'll bring this up to a simmer, and then we're going to add our shrimp. And my rice is just finishing up now. So you can see it has a nice brown color to it. And again, I've seen a whole range. And if you want the sauce just a little bit thicker, you can add a little bit more flour to it. Just don't go overboard. Again, you don't want to make an etouffee donut. You want it to have a nice sauciness to it. So I'll let all of this meld together for about 5 minutes, constantly stir it, and then I'm going to stir the shrimp into it and give it a few more minutes. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are 5 minutes later. This is one of the moments of truth. And you'll notice when you watch chefs cook, often they taste the sauce. Part of the reason they taste the sauce is ingredients vary. The freshness, the strength of the different flavors can vary. So taste the sauce. Take a clean spoon. And give it a little taste. This is exactly the way I like it. So I'm not adding any more salt, any more cayenne or chili pepper or black pepper or anything else. This is it. So now all I'm going to do is stir our shrimp into it. At this point, if you have crawfish, you can stir those in now too. And the point of the seafood and adding the seafood is don't cook it so long that the seafood vanishes in the dish. I mean, you know, shrimp shrink. It's just a matter of fact. The shrimp will give out some nice seafood flavor, as will your crawfish. But you want them to cook through. And this will take about 5 to 10 minutes in this sauce. Because the shrimp were chilled in the refrigerator, I have to bring the temperature back up, so this will go back into a saute mode. You know, we'll see some bubbles. And the shrimp's going to turn pink. And after about 5 to 10 minutes, it'll be ready. That's the way I like it. And again, if you don't like to see the vegetables in your etouffee, you can cut them smaller. You can, you can reduce them longer. Or, and this, I just can't see doing this for me, you could put them through a food processor or a blender or something like that. But I don't really see the point of that. And by that, I mean after you get them soft, like you could take a hand mixer and kind of touch it in there to kind of juice them basically a little bit more. But I like a hearty etouffee. And I know someday I'm going to have to defend this somewhere, but I like it hearty. And you know, you'll probably, if you looked at the population in Louisiana, a certain number will like it on the clear side, some will like it moderate, and some will like it vegetable hearty like I like it. It's just one of those dishes. And that's the fun of cooking. That's why I love to cook. It's an art. We're not machines when we cook. It's an art. We're putting together our version of a masterpiece and then sending it out there for others to enjoy. So I'm just going to let this cook for, another 5 minutes or so, and I'm going to see you in a moment. So congratulations. Look at what you just made. you just made this easy and delicious shrimp etouffee. And I want to thank all of the cooks all the way across South and Southwest Louisiana who showed me how to make this. And they didn't show me on purpose, they showed me because they argued about it. And I just picked up little notes here and there. And I absolutely love etouffee. So please, go to Louisiana when you have a chance and learn how to cook. I mean, people everywhere know how to do it because they debate it. And that's why it's so delicious. Now, if you like this recipe, please go to my website, stepbystepchef.com. There you will find a printable version of this recipe. And it's free. It's yours to have. What you're also going to find there is printable recipes and video links for every single one of those recipes that will show you how to make breakfast, lunches, and dinners. Over 175 different dishes. And you can just print them. You can help yourself to it. But when you go there, you're also going to find my cookbook, Cooking with the Step-by-Step Chef. And I update this every November with whatever I've been cooking that year. And each of these recipes does have a video link. You just go on my site and you go, well, I like this from the cookbook. I'm going to go on the site, find that recipe, and I'm going to cook with that guy. I'm going to cook with him the step-by-step way. This makes a great gift for your family, for your friends, for yourself, and maybe even for casual acquaintances. I mean, they need to cook too. So please check it out. So again, my name is Larry Richardson. I am your step-by-step chef, and I'll see you in the next episode.